Morning, good morning. Welcome back. L'chaim, everybody. L'chaim Ivracha. Continuing with Tmuga. Yes, it's over there. So it'd be in this one. That's including Elul. Tammuz Elul. Chadoidi or Nila Doidi? Yes. No, I don't see. It's okay. Thanks. Okay. So this then, coming back to our verse, the verse that we read this past Shabbos from the Haftarah of Isaiah, Shabbos Chazain. So the last words of the Haftarah of the reading. Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shabel b'tzedakah. Tzion, Zion, with mishpat, with judgment, it will be redeemed, and those that return, captive that return, with charity. So what this is speaking about, the Jewish people that are called Tzion. Why are they called Tzion? Why are they called Zion? Is because they engaged in Torah, in the study of Torah, in Avodah, in divine service, prayer, and acts of loving kindness, which that's the over the broad general category of Torah mitzvahs. And through this, they become a Tzion. They become Zion. Zion means a siman. A siman means a identifying mark. Meaning, they become an identifying mark. Torah mitzvahs is an identifying mark on the Jew. That even when they're in Golus, in exile, right, amongst nations of the world, we don't get lost, God forbid, amongst the nations of the world, and we become assimilated. Similar to the idea that the word siman, meaning a identifying mark. So, for example, if you lost a grapefruit on the street, so the halacha is, the law is, there's no identifying mark to it. Therefore, the owner has probably given up hope of retrieving it. And therefore, it's considered hefker, ownerless. However, a wallet, forget about having a name in it, identifying mark because of, you've got your driver's license. So, of course, there's a name there. That's obviously an identifying mark. That wouldn't be, or let's say these grapefruits, they were 6 of them, and they were put in a pile or they were put one next to each other, that it looks like someone placed them there purposefully. Like, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what the reason is. Since they're placed there purposefully, that is a sign to someone that they can come and claim and say, hey, that belongs to me. I left it, on the side of the road at this junction, whatever, for example. And that would be proof that it's theirs. If you lost a grapefruit, this idea is really money, right? You lost a dollar bill. No one knows the number sequence on the dollar bill that that they could come and claim and say is theirs. So they give up hope, and the halacha is therefore that it's doesn't belong to anybody, and the finder can keep it. But if you found a dollar bill and you see writing on it that I got it from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right, on this date, then that's an identifying sign that it belongs to a specific person. Well, that you would have to say, you'd have to put it up as a that you found a dollar bill that belongs to a dollar bill from the Rebbe. And then the person would have to come in and prove and say, yeah, this and this date. That's called an identifying mark on a dollar bill, right? So all of that to just say that the term siman, which is what we're translating to mean the word tzia in Zion, means an identifying mark, that therefore the thing is still owned by the owner. It's not in his possession now. It's lost, but not lost forever. It will be returned to its rightful owner in halacha, right? Obviously, someone can steal it. We're not talking about what someone will do that's wrong. If you found such a dollar bill, right? But by the way, you're not allowed to say, not that you're not allowed to say. It wouldn't be appropriate to say, I found a $5 bill in synagogue. Whose is it? Because then anybody can come and say it's theirs. They don't have no proof. The person who lost it needs some kind of proof. So if you would say in synagogue, did someone lose money? And then the guy would say, ooh, I had $100 bill on me. It's lost. And it happened to be $100 bill. Oh, that's a different story. Right? They'd have to have the identifying mark. That's the law. Right? Or better yet, two people came to you, right? Oh, I lost it. So what are you going to do? You're not going to split the $100 bill because two people came and claimed it. They need a sign to prove. So the word "sia" means a sign that therefore it's got an owner and it's lost. It needs to be returned. Oh, that's what we're talking about over here. A Jew that is kind of lost amongst the nations, but is strong in their Torah and mitzvahs. Not lost in a personal way, because they're involved in their Torah and mitzvahs. So they are a signpost. They are a identifying mark that they're a Jew and not lost. I mean, they're lost in exile, but they're not lost personally, so to speak, if you will. Because They have an identifying mark, and eventually they're going to get back to where they belong, to God. Not God in the moment in doing a mitzvah, to be at the table of God. I mean, not in exile anymore. And more than this, right, is what we're learning from this verse. Through their divine service of Torah and mitzvahs in a time of exile, we become elevated. That's the point. The point isn't to go into exile and just return back to the same place. That's why the metaphor of a lost object is not such a good metaphor, because it's about your dollar bill from the Rebbe that's returned to you, and it's coming just back to the same place. So it's not a complete metaphor, because here, going into exile, right, and not losing your identity, which is what Jews have done for the last 2,000 years plus, or 2,000 years, right, is in order that we actually come to a greater place. We become more exalted beyond the way we were before the destruction of the Second Temple, which the presence of God was palpable in the Second Holy Temple. And this exaltedness of becoming greater than we were before going into exile is expressed in two different ways. That in a time of exile, as we explained previously in the 5th chapter, it reveals the power and the limitlessness of light. That even darkness, as great as a darkness is, right, as great as October 7th was, in darkness, was that a dark day. As great as that darkness is, and as great as the darkness of exile is, it is not something that conceals and hides the Jew. Because the light of the soul, is greater than the vessel that contains it. Because the light is beyond it, beyond being contained by the vessel. Because the light is infinite. Nonetheless, even though the light is infinite, it's still in a geder, in a condition, in a definition, and bound by the boundaries of light. Right? It's still defined as light. It still has the limitations of light, even though, okay, light versus vessel, the limitations of a vessel container is very limiting, right? The light, or even liquid, right? The liquid is being bound by the container. But the metaphor here is light, which is greater than liquid in the sense that it is limitless. But like water, also it's kind of limitless in the sense it's always going to the lowest place, right? We know that by when you have a flood, in the negative sense. But here, light doesn't have a boundary, but it is bound by the fact that it's light. Now, that's the first level. The second level of the aliyah, the exaltedness, the uplifting that there is by being in exile and doing our divine service in exile, is that darkness itself is transformed to light. Which that's a hard idea to grasp. Because when is physical darkness ever transformed into light? It's not. But for those who were here Sunday for the class, so then we expressed what it means, the darkness, the dark experience that we go through in life. Sometimes the dark experience can be so dark, and yet it itself transforms into light. Not it leads you to light. Not that one door is closed and that now opens another door in life, right? That's the, if anything, that's the first level. The second level is that darkness itself is transformed into light. Where is that? How does that make even sense? Not in the metaphor of the darkness, because it's hard to imagine the darkness itself. A dark experience you could imagine, it transforms into light. That because it comes from beyond the definition of light and darkness. As light has its tchum, has its boundary, light is during the day. Light is not during the night. You don't have light at night, right? I mean, you have the reflection of light of the sun, but you don't have light at night. That's what night means, darkness. So it has its boundary. But why does light have its boundary and why does darkness have its boundary? Because it comes from the core essence of God. In Atzmos, light and dark are equal. There's no distinction. We have a distinction between light and dark. God doesn't. Light is light and dark is dark, only to us. But in Atzmos, light and dark are the same thing. He's beyond the definition, being defined by someone who creates light and someone who creates dark. No, he's the creator of it. He's beyond it, and therefore they're both, in a sense, equal. So therefore, the darkness itself in Atzmos could be a source of light. Meaning, us in our soul, right? In our soul, we have the capacity to find that part in our soul that's not defined, that the soul's not defined by light. Normally you think, oh, your soul is a great source of light. It's actually part of God. So therefore it's beyond light. And therefore the darkness itself can be the source of light. That's the higher level of now we're going to go
Question?
Yeah, we're going to continue with this. We're in the 7th chapter, but we're going to continue with it. Yes.
Why does it say Yotzer Or Uboreh Choshen? What's the difference?
Because that's in creation. That's in creation. That's within creation. When we're speaking in prayers, Yotzer Or, that's already Yotzer, where he forms. Or Oboire, right? And he's a creator of Choshech. That's already in the Tzimtzum, the contraction of God within creation, how he creates that Or does have its boundary, and Choshech and darkness does have its boundary, because that's in creation. But the soul is a part of God and not therefore part of creation, doesn't have that limitation. Shkoyach, good question, excellent question.